to today, I have been asked by a few people, Esosa, why this event? And my simple answer has been, why not? But to do that question justice, I thought I should share with you some statistics and information that I came across during the course of my own research. So according to the Home Office and Office of National Statistics, in England and Wales alone, in the year ending September 2017, there were 37,433 recorded knife offences. Similarly, there were 6,694 recorded gun crime offences. From the same source, I discovered that in the country's capital of London, in every 100,000 population, there are about 114 knife crime activities that took place. And closely following that figure is the region of West Midlands, which saw about 56 offences, and similarly, every 100,000 population. Now, while those numbers are prior to 2018, police sources already are telling you that in this year alone, which were just in the 6 months, in 2018 alone, there has been a hike in the rate of these crimes, knife and gun crimes. In my research, I saw several government white papers that talk about approaches and strategies on how to curb this crime epidemic. And you know what? It's interesting that even the government realizes that for us to solve this problem, to curb this growing menace eating away our society, they need to work with the community. That they need a multi-stranded approach. And who is the community? You and I. This begs a number of questions for me. Are we as a community reacting right to these issues? Are we tackling it enough? Just by virtue of quick introduction, I'll start with Ashley. Ashley is representing the West Midlands Police and Crime Commission. Originally, we had planned to have David Jameson, the West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner, but he's been ably represented by Ashley Betty. So thank you for coming. The West Midlands Police and Crime Commission is the local police governing body in the region. And Ashley, as a person, took on this role in 2016, I suppose. Yeah. And he has an interest in the force's youth engagement policy. He leads a Gangs and Violence Commission and has a passion for the young ones. So we look forward to hearing more from you, Ashley. Reverend Desmond Jadu, at my far right, is a local minister, as his title suggests. He also is a community activist who specializes in safer streets, political lobbying, equality, and justice. He's also the founder of Birmingham Empowerment Forum, and he chairs the Yes to Life Anti-Weapon Coalition. Thank you, sir, for coming. Right in the middle are two beautiful ladies. Janice is a mentor to young people. She also is a business manager, co-founder of Eloquent Dance and Praise Company. She's also a single parent to 2 young children, one of whom is also our panelist. And she is Romana Malcolm. Romana is also the co-founder of Eloquent Company. She's a motivational speaker to youths and a teacher. We hope to hear a lot from them about parenting in today's upheavals, nursing of dreams for young ones, and a whole lot more. So thank you very much for making time to come here today. To my left is Joe Jackson. He is the founder of a football club in Wolverhampton, and he is the chairperson of Wolverhampton Citizens for Change initiative that was established in 2016 following a number of gang-related events in the city. Joe is also a voice in the community, liaising between them and the authority. We shall hear more from Joe about his own experience with gangs. Thank you very much for coming. Okay, that's all for now for my panelists. We have just one person who is running a bit late, and I'll talk about him later on. Representing the police, Ashley, could you help us see this through the eyes of the law? How big a problem is it?
Well, firstly, thank you very much for the invitation to be here. It's much appreciated, and I look forward to the discussion with the panel members here and, of course, the audience. It is a big issue. We have to be upfront and open about that. We have to understand that the reasons why young people are picking up weapons are very, very complex. There are issues around disenfranchisement, young people not feeling part of the fabric of our society. There are issues that relate directly to austerity measures. The fact that a lot of our public authorities have lost staff, have lost resources, and as a result we're now seeing what's happening. We're seeing young people who don't feel being listened to, don't feel part of our society carrying out acts upon themselves and ultimately killing one another. It's a huge issue, and the police across the whole country are taking this very, very seriously, and indeed West Midlands Police are also taking it very, very seriously. We have started a number of short-term, medium-term and long-term measures to really not only understand some of the issues of youth criminality, but more importantly, what we can do to try to stem it. Working not just by ourselves, but more importantly with all our partners and the community. One thing we have done in response to the uptick in violent crime is set up a gang violence commission. This started in 2016, March 2016. At the time, there was a real uptick in violent crime. Over the last 2 years or so, since the beginning of the time we started it, we've been in consultation with the public, different organisations, to the point where in December of last year we released a report that had a number of recommendations for what we can do to tackle some of these issues. And we're now at a stage where we are commissioning organisations based in the heartlands of our communities to actually do some of this work, because we realise that the only way we're going to tackle this issue is to have a bottom-up approach. It can't be top-down. It can't be a case of police officers telling people what they should be doing, what they can't do. This has to be a response led by the community. My job as the Assistant Police and Crime Commissioner is to help facilitate some of that good work.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Reverend Jadu, being a voice in the community and a community activist, just to help us appreciate it from your angle, what's the rate of these occurrences? How often are they happening in the West Midlands, for instance? You could choose a weekly basis or a monthly basis, for instance. How many of these do we get trickling in?
I don't think that question can be answered in that way. First thing, knife and gun crime is nothing new. The authorities are behaving like this has just happened last week. It's been going on for in excess of 30 years in this city. It quietened down. It quietened down because there was a lot of investment that was placed into it. They had Birmingham reducing gang violence. When they used law enforcement coupled with community intervention, it decreased what was happening. What then happened was they said, well, we've got rid of it, so we'll stop, as opposed to turning it into a proactive measure. Then what happened was that it just started to manifest again. Now, 3 years ago we had a spike. At one point in Newtown, shots were fired every single day over a 21-day period. Following the Simmer Down Festival back in 2015, there was a spark then of a summer of violence in the city. And it got that bad, people firing shots at each other and no one even reported it to the police. So the police weren't able to get a handle on this. Importantly, you asked an important question. Have the police really got control of our streets? The answer is no, they haven't. Because what they do is they politicize this. By advertising, because of the cuts, we can't cope. Now what you're doing is you're licensing people out there that don't want to do good to go and do evil, because they're saying, well, we can't respond immediately because of the cuts. What you're doing is basically, it's doing the same thing like leaving that door open, taking a photograph of it, putting it on Facebook and telling everyone you left that door open. That's one of the key issues. Now all we hear out of the politicians' mouths at the moment is police cuts, police cuts, police cuts. That's all we're hearing. The facts are, at the end of the day, gun and knife crime in this city has been an epidemic for a number of years, and when there was investment, when there was plenty of money floating around, when we're talking 20, 30 years ago, when there were plenty of police officers, gun and knife crime was happening then and it was spiking then. So clearly, it is not an issue of just policing. It is not clearly an issue of criminality.
Yeah.
There are holistic issues which aren't being addressed. So, and we're looking as well at, things like, an example would be the erosion of the family, educational underachievement, opportunities, discrimination as well, access to services. We've got mass disaffection, not just amongst youth, but amongst parents as well. There are parenting issues as well which are there. There are issues in school. I am chairman of an alternative provision school just across the road here, CUL Academy. We get the worst of the worst there, and they leave there with qualifications. One lad was in there last year, and they said he had a prison number tattooed on his head. Do you know what he left school with? He left school with 6 GCSEs A to C. That's what he left with. Wow. Because one of the things that there is a failure in is to actually invest in our young people. Not politicise the issue, invest. 3 years ago, our Yes to Life Coalition met, the Chief Constable was there, and we identified that we have to start educating from the age of 5. Not 8, 5 years old. We're now even developing at the moment a program in the Newtown area that's being developed to start that cohesive activity between 2 and 5 year olds through a play stream. 5-year-olds to say 8, 9 year olds. We're looking at an education game-based package now. Now all of this is without funding. But how it works is this. At the moment, when the authorities want to find something out, they turn to the community. But when the community turns to the authority, it falls on their feet. So politicians come, politicians go. People come and people go. But importantly, we are the constant factor. And we are the ones that can make that all-important difference by being allowed to take responsibility. Now, in terms of figures, just to finish off, last weekend, the weekend before last, there were 3 shots fired and 1 stabbing. Okay? Attacks are happening generally now. Attacks are no longer gun and knives either. We've seen attacks this week with bricks, with baseball bats. We've seen just sheer complete violence. Wow. And in West Bromwich, following a football match, there was a mass brawler in the streets on the main high street in West Bromwich. The facts are, at the end of the day, we are seeing now a cycle of violence happening in our communities. Yeah. And the facts are, at the end of the day, no one has a handle on this. And importantly, and just to finish up on this one, we need someone to take responsibility, and we need solid directional leadership. That is what is lacking right now.
Okay, thank you very much. You touched on so many points there, and I'm so tempted to dig further into that, but because I have it planned to come on a little later, I'll wait. But on that note, you mentioned something about discrimination.
Yes.
Would you say these crimes are happening among a particular demographic of people?
We know that majority of violence crime is committed by white people.
Okay.
That's a fact. That is a fact. If you look at London figures, 30, I think it's 27% of violent crime is committed by black people. The other is committed by everybody else, predominantly white.
Okay.
However, when someone is lost, when someone has no hope, and when that playing field when they're misunderstood because you may speak loud, people misunderstand me, 6 foot tall, 23 stone, believe it or not, black, speaking loudly, I'm described as being aggressive. It happens. The stereotype that some of our youth face, and then they will probably get thrown out of class at school, placed into isolation. Next thing the parents get a call, next thing they're thrown out. Now, a typical example of that is this young lad who came to our school, we gave him opportunity, we invested in him, we leveled the playing field, and he achieved. It's how you deal with people. And I do believe, I mean, you know, from the time of the Windrush until now, we as black people have faced discrimination, and that discrimination is continuous today. And I'll tell you one thing, as an activist, I get a rough ride because many of you know that I say it how it is. And I do get backlash for that. But I don't care, because one of the things that I have to ensure is that I speak the truth and I tell it how it is. And I make no bones about that. And discrimination does play a part. When a child, and I will say a child, when a child applies for a job, and they turn up to the interview, and then they don't get the job, but someone less qualified gets that job, then straight away, and they can't get a job, no one's prepared to invest in them. How are they going to live when they want the latest pair of Nike trainers?
Okay, let's move slightly from that topic, although we'll come back to it definitely. Joe, you have had some experience with gang life. Personal, I believe. Can you share that with us for us to understand how people actually just wake up and choose to go into such a lifestyle?
Good afternoon, everyone. I've not necessarily been in a gang or anything like that, but I'm the father of 3 boys. My background is an inner city background. My sort of passion has been football. I've played football and played at a good level in the professional game. And I just remember, having to play football all over the UK and then coming back to Wolverhampton when I was around sort of 30, and just seeing gangs and the violence and the conflicts and the tensions in the city. And I just remember looking at my sons, and they were like in primary school age at the time, and saying, you know what, I came from a situation where it was very tough, gangs were still around, but football saved me. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to set up a football program because it was good for me. And at the time, we had, like, I come from an area called New Park Village, and across the way is an area called Eve Town. I guess it's very much similar to what you'd have in Lozells and Antwerp. Just one street kind of separating the two, but yet they all go to the same school. And so exactly the same scenario. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to just use this game. I'm going to develop some young people who are 16 plus, who are on the periphery of gangs, and get them to become coaches, and then to work in the primary setting, and then get them to be role models, positive role models. Because at the heart of the thinking was my children were 9 and 10. And I knew that if something didn't happen different to what was happening, they're just going to grow up into it. And so I decided, as a community person, nothing special. I was a college lecturer, I dealt with sports, I'm a football man, it was good to me. I connected up those dots and then decided to make a difference. However, me and my wife, we live on this inner city estate, deprivation, all of those markers were there. We were the only black parents that were married. I want you to understand what I'm saying. So my boys were the odd one out. So when they went out, age 9, 10, 11, 12, they were the odd one out. So I would come out as dad. I'd walk out, and they were 13 and 14. I'd walk out and I'd say, yo, inside. And so they'd have to leave their friends, but they'd get it tomorrow morning. Because nobody was there to challenge them. There was no male figure there to say to them, go inside. But they didn't understand that they had the privilege, but they didn't see it as a privilege. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so in effect, where they were really the best standard that the other people could look towards, in actual fact, it switched around until they became the main gang members.
Wow.
You have to understand how this thing works. Because the pressure on them, that peer pressure on them was, you are the odd one, and so they needed to demonstrate that they were still a part of them. But yet those friends, when we talk now, because my boys are 33 and the other one's 32 and my other one, he was kind of at the periphery, but I think it was because of the other two older ones. When we talk now, and these boys are all like older boys, they now come and say, Joe or Mr. Jackson, we were envious of your boys, man, and they don't even know you. You have to understand the power of the street out there.
Yes.
And so my boys, you know, and I'm just being real, you know, I didn't enter into this because I want to. I'm a man of God, and I became a man of God 13 years ago, and I recognize it as my calling. You know, it's in my heart, it's in my spirit. So everything that a parent would see and hear, I had it. You know, one of my boys have been caught, they've been to jail, helicopters have been out, hovering over our house, they've come and searched our house. So everything that a parent would wish not to have, I've been there.
You had a good lot of that.
Yeah, I've been there. But I didn't allow, what I would say is I just believe that God gave me inside knowledge. That's how I see this. You know, I'm not coming from a theory, I'm not coming from a university research, I'm coming from the real deal. This is what it is. And so my boys were not bad boys, they were educated boys. We did all the things that good parents should do. We took them to football, we did all of those things, yet they became, I'm not talking like gang members, I'm talking main players. Leaders.
Wow. Wow. That must have been huge for you and your wife at the time.
Say it again, sorry.
That must have been huge for you and your wife to take in at the time.
Yeah, but I think, you know, it's almost like God orchestrated it, because I just believe, and I'm being serious, you know, 2005, I became a Christian, and I know who I am, and I know the reason why I made sure that I kind of moved a certain way. But I was very, very close to taking matters into my own hands. And God just called me at a particular time and just kind of strengthened us. So I have no doubt that God has just kept us, and God has kind of carried us all the way through.
Yeah.
And I know that's very much the same for many people.
Yes, absolutely. Tell us what your boys are doing now.
The 33-year-old just done an 8-year stretch. He came out in October, and he did some qualifications and all of that inside the prison. He came out, and he's got some other friends, and they're doing like bathroom and kitchens and tiling. So he's gone straight into that, and he's setting up his own business. The middle one, he's followed in his father's footsteps. He's a coach, and he delivers coaching sessions in schools and coordinates football programs. And the last one, Ricky, he's a businessman, been a businessman. You know, he's 27, and he's and all of them have been at the heart of it.
Yeah.
But they've all gone on now to kind of, I guess, be proper, really role models
definitely,
for other people.
definitely.
You know?
Talk about life.
And a lot of people kind of look to them for kind of support and guidance and help to kind of move themselves through as well.
Brilliant. That just tells us that there is hope, regardless of what the situation might seem for some of these people. Thank you very much. On that note, it's interesting that you mentioned that for your own kids, they were the odd ones out. Despite the good family upbringing, they were lured into that way of life. I was watching a video on Facebook the other week, and a former gang leader said that they watch out for the vulnerable ones in the community. And he went on to explain what he meant. Vulnerability could be in terms of age, very young children who are naive, and they can talk to them out of and into doing things. He also said children from disrupted family backgrounds. He said children who have been bullied. And it went on and on, but would you agree with this, or do you think that there are other factors? You mentioned one from your experience. Are there other factors, Joe, that you think contribute to this? To people going into the way of gang life?
A lot of it is well documented, and I think fatherlessness is a major issue, and that in itself makes young people become vulnerable.
Yes.
And I think I think everybody has this thing about them in terms of significance. We all want a sense of significance. And if we look on our estates and we see certain gang members driving, gang leaders driving big cars, looking well presented and having all of these things, they then become almost a father figure. And particularly if they're able to sort of say, here's £100, get yourself a pair of trainers. And that's the type of thing that certainly happened around that time.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. That is really troubling, hearing all you just said. Well, we have to keep hope alive. Janice, now your turn. We need to hear from the ladies now, shouldn't we? Joe mentioned earlier that fatherlessness is one key factor that is driving people out to the streets and into gang life. Errol Lawson, who ought to be here, but he's held up. Hopefully he'll join us before the end of this. He wrote a book titled From the Postcode to the Globe, How to Overcome Your Limitations. And in the book, he documented his own life experience and the reason why he got into gang life, which mirrors what Joe just mentioned about fatherlessness. From your experience as a single mom, how would you say, how difficult is this for single parents? What's the hope for single parents if really the absence of a father role model is key to the decision made by our young ones to go out there to such a life of hate and violence? What's your take? What's hope for single parents?
Okay, I come from a place of experience. Within the dance and mentoring club that we run, there's 120 kids. And I'd say of the 120 kids that we have, there's possibly about 15 of those kids that have a father figure. Okay, and we know this because when we do get-togethers with them, that they'll play a game as an icebreaker. One of the icebreakers will be run to that corner if you have mother and father. And the crazy thing is that there'll be a corner with there's about 5, 6 or 7 of them where they basically don't have mother or father, it's just mother. It has a great impact with these kids not having a father present. Coming from my own experience as a single mother, and having had discussions with these parents, is that what seems to be happening at the moment, and I think I can't remember his name, Reverend yeah, he mentioned that there's a lot of parents that actually have problems themselves.
Yes.
And this is having a huge impact on the children, because what the parents are actually doing is that they are trying to disregard the fact that the child needs mother and father support, take on their own situation and either turn the child away from the father if there's a situation in the home or the father's not in the home, make the child believe that the father is no good, or have disrespect for the father figure as such. And they do that as a way of, they believe it's their way of coping as a single mother. But in actual fact, they're probably doing the worst thing that could possibly be. Irrespective of having a girl and a boy, I've come to realise that maybe there's not such a great impact, and this is from experience, there's not such a great impact for the father figure where the girl's concerned, but certainly where the boy's concerned, it is so significant. It's so significant. Being a single mother, I've had my family issues, but what I had to do was put myself to one side, put me totally out of the equation, and ensure that my son, irrespective of what's gone on, see what his needs and wants were. And even though his father figure wasn't the greatest role model, it still had to be applied that you have your father there and you have a relationship and you respect him. And it's so hard as a mom to do that, especially for a lot of parents who are suffering bitterness, anger, hurt. It's one of the hardest things to do, but in a society as it is today, it's something they have to realise that actually the child needs that father. And unless they put aside all the problems that they do have, and focus on the child, there's going to be a problem.
Yes.
Yeah, especially from a boy perspective. I mean, my son's been very fortunate. He plays for West Bromwich Albion, so he's always been in the football academy and he's always been busy. And if he didn't have his father, would there be a difference in him? Possibility, because he's so distracted with the football. However, I didn't disregard that.
Yes.
And what I had to do was listen carefully to what he wanted, his needs and wants.
Yes.
And how he looked upon things for himself.
Yes.
There's nothing worse for a young boy without a father to see other boys within a group actually see their fathers pick them up, have that relationship. It's difficult for them. And when they don't have that and be able to get advice from their father and have that relationship, that creates a problem.
Yes.
Within the actual club itself, the boys that don't have a father role, they become very, they feel they have lack of purpose.
Yes.
They feel they have no direction.
Yes.
And then they take things into their own hands. They're method in the way which they handle things.
Yes.
They say things like, "Oh, I'm just living for today. Nothing about tomorrow. Nothing matters about tomorrow.
Yes,
Just
no
living for
hope
today.
for the future.
There's no hope. There's no purpose." And and no matter how much the mother will speak to them and give them goals and focus and direction, that father figure is key.
It is. Yeah, it is. All right. So you are fortunate, very fortunate, that your two kids have turned out so good. One co-founded the dance school, and the other, like you mentioned, doing very well. For the less fortunate single parents, single moms, and from the work you do in your dance school, because obviously we now can tell that it's not just about dance that you do. What can such single moms do to fill that void if peradventure the father figure is nowhere to be found, or doesn't want to have any communication or anything to do with their kids? What's the hope? What can they do? Is there a community solution? Is there anything that they could do reach out to as a lifeline?
Okay, first of all, a lot of these kids that attend dance can't dance. Let's just make that clear.
I didn't know that. It's interesting.
My daughter will echo that. It's gone past the stage where they have the skill set to dance, and it's now become a community link up. Wow. Okay. It's somewhere where they get to release. It's somewhere where they get to vent their frustration.
Yes.
And it's somewhere actually where they have found love between each other.
Yes.
And from the mentors that we have in place, who they look up to as role models. Okay, so let's take the dance side out of it, okay? Because some of them have got left feet or right feet, and the coordination is just not there. And really, we should be saying to them, get out, leave. However, when we focus on the mentor and the devotion side, and we're speaking to each of them, I guarantee you by the end of the session, majority of them, in fact all of them, are all in tears. Okay. Now, if we go back to the absolute basics, you asked me what could parents do to make it better. There's one key fundamental thing, and it's just a simple: give them more love. Okay? Give them more love, give them understanding, listen to them, and talk to them.
Yes.
There's so many parents that come in and they offload and they, I take on a lot, listen to a lot.
Yes.
And a lot of their moaning about the children or their, frustration is that, they lock themselves in the room, they don't talk to me, they're on their iPhone, they're on the iPad, I have no relationship, they'll speak to you, Jan, can you speak to them, they're not behaving at school, they're not listening. And I'm thinking, but I don't know your child as much as you do.
Yeah,
because
you are the parent.
You use them in the daily.
Yes.
And I think some of them have reached a situation where if they feel that they're speaking to the child and the child's head down and they're not listening, that's it. Rapport in relationship is broken, I'm not going to bother. So then they show no love. They start cursing the child every day, you haven't done this, you haven't done that, and then it gets to a point where the relationship breaks down, the child feels no love, and then that connection is lost.
Indeed so. Wow. Nuggets of wisdom there. Nuggets of wisdom. Romana, as a motivational speaker to the youth, be it in your dance company and outside, would you say that we as a community have become desensitized? And a two-part question. From speaking and engaging with the young ones, what would you say is their key message to us in terms of what they are saying and what we are not hearing, or how underrepresented their issues are to us as a community?
Okay, hi guys. Hi. I would say that the young people, a lot of the boys that we have at Eloquent want to be in gangs. So it's not a case of, oh, they get dragged into it. A lot of them generally want to.
Really?
Yeah, I teach a lot of boys who front it and they're like, yeah, I want to be involved in one, I want to be in with it. They generally want to do it. It's something they want to do. It's something they want to do because it looks good.
Yeah.
I mean, girls gravitate to that a lot.
Yes.
We've got a lot of teenage girls in Eloquent who gravitate to the boys that are in gangs because they like it.
Wow.
They feed off it. It's nice. I want to be with the bad boys more than that. I don't know why I want to be with the bad boys, but something's drawing me to that.
Yes.
They can't even put the finger on why not. So I've found that a lot of the young people like it.
Okay.
They like the adrenaline. They like the sneaking out their house to link up. They like the money, they like the secrecy, they enjoy it. So we're having to teach them that morally this is wrong, like this isn't good, but we have to model it.
Yes.
Because coming against young people that want to do it is really difficult.
Can you
If it was
imagine?
young people that were involved and wrapped up in, oh, I don't know how to get out, it's different then because they want to get out. But a lot of our young kids and a lot of our boys want to be involved. They like sneaking out the house and going to town and making money.
Yes.
I mean, one of my brother's friends went missing 2 weeks ago and he was away for like a month, and we were putting up posts on Instagram, where is he? 15-year-old boy lost. Everyone's worried.
Of course.
And I said to my brother, Joe, are you worried? And he's like, nah, we know where Raf is. All of his friends were just blasé. No one was concerned that he was missing because everyone was like, we know where he is, man, he's gone crunch.
What does that mean?
Everyone's like, yeah, he's crunch. He's gone crunch to make money. Like, one of the drug leaders have sent him on an assignment for a month's time to go and make money.
Oh my
So none
goodness.
of the young people were concerned when they seen a missing picture. Everyone was just like, yeah, we know where he is. And the girls are like, yeah, we know where he is. He's got to make money. So everyone's like, blasé about it, not bothered, not concerned.
Yeah.
So when adults are coming to speak to these young people about how can we stay out of gangs, they're not listening. They're switched off.
Wow.
They don't even want to sit down and talk to you for 2 minutes about how to stay out of gangs. They want knowledge of how can we make more money?
Wow.
How can we get money quick? A lot of them are like, I'm 15 now, but I want to be driving by next year. So how can we rob a car? Like,
Yeah. That doesn't make your job any easier if they
No.
want to be in that lifestyle.
No.
Wow. That is huge. Wow, wow, wow. Wow. I'm at a loss of words, to be honest, because I didn't think that. I thought, they actually don't want to go in there and they're just being pressurized. So hearing you tell me that scares me, because where do you start from?
yeah, exactly.
And it sounds to me like it is the absence, again, of role models, because it is what had been modeled before them that they have seen as the norm. So why not? Wow. So I mean, this is a question that's probably difficult for you to answer, but are you breaking through that? Are you succeeding at all to turn them around?
That's a really good question. I wouldn't like to say, oh, we're succeeding, because every week is a new challenge.
Yeah.
And we generally can't do it by ourselves. We're battling with parents that aren't fussed. So I'm not going to say, yeah, we're succeeding. We're doing a good job. We're doing good work. I mean, we've got a home. We've got a dance studio. We can't even call it a dance studio. It's a home anymore. It's a home where over 100 kids come each week. Sometimes dance finishes at 4 o'clock. They'll be there till 7 o'clock, just playing music and just chilling.
Yeah.
We can't even go home.
No.
Because we're like, if we go home, parents ain't called them.
Yeah.
It's now 7 o'clock. No one's rang to say, where are you?
Wow.
If we lock up the studio, where are they going to
turning
go?
them through? Yeah.
Where are they going to go?
Yeah. Errol is a youth advocate. He's a best-selling author of the book which I mentioned earlier, From the Postcode to the Globe, and he works in the community to help curb these crimes. Errol, just very briefly, help us understand how it was for you. You were admitted into one of the grammar schools in Birmingham, so you were a bright student, of course. So at what point was it for you that you felt gang life is it for me? I'm going to get up and go. Was it a sudden decision? Was it a process? How did it happen?
Cool. Hello everybody. So my story was that I think, as you were asking me the question earlier, I think actually I was conditioned for it before, in a sense. So I think because it's multi-layered, right, it's multifaceted. So if we look at my upbringing, my parents were together up until the age of about 11. My parents divorced. I went off the rails. The things that I listened to, was conditioned by in the home, was the music and the culture, which was dancehall music. Dancehall music spoke a lot about violence and crime and how a certain lifestyle was promoted. Those things are in your mind or in your head, things you tolerate, things you won't tolerate because of what you think society in that frame of reference is how you're supposed to behave. Those things are happening, seeds are being sown. Parents divorced, dad's not around, and so my friends are all of us. Although it's a grammar school in Sutton, primary schools in Handsworth, so most of my friends are from the same kind of context, where either single parent or definitely a dysfunctional home environment. And so we gravitate together, we feel each other's pain, and we kind of support each other with the same values.
Yes.
And then as we grow older, the reality of the bias in society, whether it was the police always stopping us or school teachers not really getting the but nurturing us.
Yeah.
Those things, again, we gravitate together, we look for common purpose, we look for common direction and identity.
Looking back, what would you say could have been different? Or let me rephrase that question. Could your family have done something differently that would have changed your decision?
I think because oftentimes we don't talk enough about the reality of the history of Black Caribbean people in this country and society. So my grandparents came over with a set of promise and hope, and they came with expectations. I found that it was a very different reality. They had to struggle to survive, and so in their pursuit for stability in this society, they probably weren't able to give as much care and attention to our emotional, spiritual well-being as we might do today in our generation to our children. And so for them it was about putting food on the table. If there's food on the table, you had a roof over your head, praise God, that was enough almost. But now what that meant that we were neglected in other ways.
Yes.
And so we had to find our way through society. So the mental, the emotional, the identity piece, it didn't kind of communicate through generations. And so could they have done anything different? I think they did the best they could with what they knew, what they had at that time, because that was their reality. And so we were victims in one sense, not wanting to be, have a victim conscience, because I don't have that. But the reality is that if you look at levels of society, our community, we were victims. We weren't given the support, the resource, the finances, the opportunities, the open doors to be whatever we wanted to be. It was a different reality for my grandparents, and then to a level my parents. And so we now born next generation down. So I don't blame them. Actually don't blame them. I think they have a part to play, of course. But I don't necessarily blame them.
Thank you. That's good. And it's funny, you were not here earlier on, but some of the speakers did say about the same thing, that parents need to listen to their children, need to make out more time for their children instead of leaving them out to the evil hands of the society, so to speak. So you have just reflected what they said. How old were you at the time when you went into gang life?
See, I don't often talk about gang stuff because it wasn't like a formal thing. I'm in a gang now. There were relationships that developed over a period of time that we were friends from primary school. It wasn't like we said we're a gang now. So it wasn't something that, it's not like that. It really isn't like that. It's just a matter of who are your closest friends, who are the people you can trust the most, you're around the most, you can connect with the most, you're from the same area, and you grow together. And that's part of the challenge for parents today, is that there are kids now who are dying, who's just because they're in a community. They're in a certain postcode area where these things happen, and they're trying to protect their kids from the reality of outside the front door, and it's hard to do that. It's not always like I'm gonna be.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Thank you. That's fine, Ashley. there are a number of knife bins in the region, and the last time I checked, there were 15, with the latest, I believe, that was opened in Oldbury. How does this help? Is this the answer?
No, it's not the answer, but it's definitely a tool in our arsenal. There are a number of ways we can tackle knife crime. There are a number of incentives we can give to young people to hand in a gun, hand in a knife, when you have a weapon, and our weapon surrender bins are just a tool in our arsenal. What we found is where young people have come across these bins with the right level of awareness, the right level of support, they are depositing those weapons. We've had a number of high-profile weapons taken off our streets. And my thing is, if you have one weapon off our streets, that means potentially that's one life saved. So we have to bear in mind that weapons surrender bins are not the answer, but they are important parts of our strategy. And we have to, as much as possible, support local communities in installing knife bins in our communities. Knife bins aren't just something that we think are a good idea. We very much are led by communities around this. So a few weeks ago, I opened a knife bin in Dudley.
All right. That makes it 16?
Yes, yeah. Oldbury, as you mentioned, there will be one in the pipeworks in Queston, an area where I'm from and where I live. Where there are local people who want to have knife bins in their area, we will do everything we possibly can to install one. We will work with anyone to make that happen, and so far so good. Have worked to a certain extent, but there's plenty more work we can do, and knife bins are just one tool.
That's fine. Just because of the sake of time, I'm going to try and cut your responses. But appreciating all you have said, the knife bins are a response to the community's need. You mentioned support. So paint the picture for us. So somebody anonymously goes and drops his weapon into the bin. After that, what? Does his state of mind, does his mindset change because he's dropped a knife into the bin? What do you as a commission do? Because it's anonymous anyway, so how do you follow up that person has the right support to live a different type of lifestyle?
Yeah, so first of all, a young person who decides to put a gun or a knife or any weapon in one of our bins has made a massive step.
Yes.
They are making an acknowledgement that the weapon they are carrying, they don't need to carry it. Yes. They are aware of what can happen if they use it or have it used against them. Yes. So we have to acknowledge that just by the mere fact of depositing the weapon,
that's a huge thing. Would you agree?
That's a massive journey. And as I touched on earlier, through Romana's remarks, a lot of young people unfortunately want to get into a gang.
Yeah.
So if you're able to turn that mentality around and get rid of a weapon, that's a massive step. We must encourage that. We are working quite heavily in schools around this, and over the next few weeks or so, there'll be more publicity around the work we're doing in schools, not just in Birmingham but across the West Midlands, to really push out the message that every young person has innate ability, talent, potential, and for us as a society to get to where we want to get to, we must make sure we support young people in everything we do and everything they do, which means giving them access to youth services, which means giving them access to provision which will allow them to do get involved in arts and culture and activities of the like. That is some of the things that we've been able to get from our Gangs Violence Commission, and we're working quite closely with local groups on the ground who are doing work to really make sure we support them as much as possible. One final thing before I finish on, and I'll let the rest of the panel members speak. We have a fund called the Active Citizens Fund. This is a fund where essentially we are confiscating the proceeds of crime, so criminals who are going out and robbing, stealing, whatever the case may be, we're confiscating those funds and recycling that money resources back into communities.
So these bins, like how secure are they? What's to stop someone going and emptying the bin, taking the knives, guns out? How often are they emptied? Are they used a lot? Like if I was a gangster or whatever, I don't see myself being like, oh yeah, we just go and put the knife in the bin. And if I did, if I'm then beefing somebody else, then I'm going to be like, I'm going to go and get another knife. How's the bin going to stop?
So in answer to your question, the bins are very, very secure. We use some of the best metals around in order to ensure that somebody can't just walk up to it, get a hammer, bang it, and take a knife or a gun out. They're bulletproof. They are very, very secure bins, which ensure that as much as possible, when people are pointed towards these weapons from the bins, they can put them in there, and they won't, for some odd reason, come up and flashback, and the knife comes out and stabs them, something like that, or a gun is fired as a result and then hits them in the back of the neck, whatever the case may be. So they're very, very secure. They are emptied by police. So these are people who have the right training in order to take them out. We also have other people who are trained and understand how the bins work, who also have access to our bins as well. Because what we realise is that this can't just be a policing thing. This has to be a local understanding around how the bins work, how they operate, who also have access to those bins, but are responsible in how they are communicated to the rest of the public. So very, very secure. And as I say, we are open to installing more bins across the West Midlands.
Thank you, Ashley. Does that answer your question? Good. Errol, you similarly go into schools and you do quite an amount of work educating and enlightening the kids on leadership, on dreams and all of that. Okay. Ashley has mentioned about a fund. What did you call the fund again? Just the name of the fund?
The Active Citizens Fund.
Active Citizens Fund. And earlier on we talked about the knife bins, which we all know about the knife angel that was erected in Shropshire in 2016. There are so many other initiatives that the government is doing. There is the End Gang Violence Exploitation Fund, and that has the Community Fund for Anti-Knife Crime. Just obviously, seemingly, a number of initiatives that the government is doing. Would you say, from your experience, from your engaging and working with these children, that the government is doing enough? What more can they possibly do?
Well, I don't think the government can solve the problem. I think everyone's got to do their bit. I think it's a multi-layered and multifaceted problem that the government, yes, they have the finance and the resources, but we too as a community have finance and resources, and if we choose to channel our finance and resources into the issue, we too can make a bigger difference as well. But the programs are happening, some very good programs are happening.
Tell us about a few.
The one that we're doing now called Get That P, which is funded by the City Council. And we're working with young offenders across the region, and it's about teaching P to young people this money, get that money. Yeah. And these are young guys who are involved in criminal activity, and we're teaching them how to make money legally. So it's an entrepreneurship program, for example. We're doing that. I know there are others. We're in a number of schools across Birmingham right now with our mentoring teams, where we're working with underachieving students and raising aspirations and what have you. So there are a lot of programs out there, and it's not one initiative, one project, one program who's going to solve the problem. I think it has to be from a multi-faceted
approach. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, guys, we've heard it over and over again that this has to be a multi-stranded approach that involves both the community and the authorities. On that note, Ashley, funding seems to be a big issue for the police commission, sorry. And I say that because with the former Home Secretary, the police commissioner, David Jamieson, asked her to match his 2 million fund for his initiative to curb these crimes. And her successor, Mr. Javid, who took on the office in April, he's asked the same thing in a letter he wrote to him. So obviously funding is a big issue. At the same time, earlier on, Mr. Jadu mentioned that it's not just to do with police cuts. And I tend to agree, not because I know of any history, but because of what I found on the internet, reported by the media, that there was a time, I think 2010, where there was a lot of money pumped into the police force, but yet crime rate soared high. So is that not an indication that it's not about the funding of the police cuts, that there is more to be done?
Two-pronged answer to that. I think we can't dismiss the impact of police cuts. Since 2010, we've lost 2,000 police officers, £145 million. Now, that's a huge cut, which means we have to do more with less, and we have to prioritise better the work we're doing. As far as the work we're doing around youth criminality, that is top of our agenda. That is our top priority. So we are utilising better the resources we have, both financial and human, to really make a tangible difference for our communities in the West Midlands. Regarding the point about funding, funding is essential, and we can't ignore that. We have to acknowledge that. We spoke at length so far this afternoon around some of the good work that all of our panel members are doing, but they need support. And part of that support is around money. So that's why the Commissioner has made that pledge around £2 million, in addition to what's already going on to tackle this issue.
Okay.
We made a plea to the former Home Secretary to match fund the work we're doing. We now have a new Home Secretary. We have made contact with the new Home Secretary, requesting a meeting so we can discuss match funding. We'll wait and see. We hold out hope that we will get good sounding from the new Home Secretary. But one thing's for certain, whether we get that extra £2 million or not, that won't stop the work we're doing. Because the issues are too great, the need is too great. We have young people right across our city who feel desperate, don't feel connected, who are dying. So whether we get money or not, we've got to keep on doing the work we're doing, and from my perspective, that means listening to local people, listening to local organisations, hearing what they need, as much as possible working with them to solve some of our issues in our community.
Indeed, so that just stresses the point about community involvement. Mr. Jadu Ashley has mentioned about the funding for such community work and all of that. You lead the Yes to Life campaign, and earlier on you alluded to your activities within the community as not being supported by the police or by the authority. So how would you like them to engage with you and support you going forward? Tell me.
Well, my doors are always open, and that's the long and short of it. Look, it's simple. We have learned how to fund what we're doing. We've gone to private companies. We've gone to individuals within our community. Because sometimes what we have to do is make it happen for ourselves. Now, just to let you know, Yes to Life is not Desmond Jadu. Everyone knows what Yes to Life is. We got Church of England. We got black churches. We've got mosques. We've got the Sikh. We've got the Gurdwaras as well. Because we recognise that this is a community issue,
yes,
and not a black issue.
Yes.
Knife crime has no colour. Gun crime has no colour.
No.
It actually affects everybody. It just doesn't affect the victim and the victim's family.
Yes.
You've got the perpetrator's family, and then you've got the community in which these crimes happen. When I go to places like Great Hampton Road and a family says to me, Desmond, my wife ran out of milk for the children, and they couldn't have anything for 5 hours until I came home from work because she's frightened to go to the shop. These are people living in terror. These are people that want something done now.
Yes.
Now what do? Fill in a funding application, try and be friends, or try and make a difference. That's what we're doing. We're actually trying to make a difference. Because importantly, right, responsibility is about putting your head above the parapet,
yes,
and saying, I'm going to do something about this.
Yes.
Now, county lines was mentioned before. That's what we call it, county lines, right? I will tell you this now. I've had 2 people come into my office because I do a surgery every Wednesday. That's not funded either. Those kids have been on county lines. One may be charged. He's only 12 years old, right? And they stuck him in a flat out of Birmingham to sell drugs, right? Now, he was missing for 3 weeks. Importantly, someone came when he was 18 and he got caught in Worcester 2 years ago. They've now decided to charge him. Now, I bothered to sit down and talk to him and say, what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to be a footballer? Sorry, don't take it the wrong way, but I used what I call the stereotypical ways that people like, the government and authority like to fund.
Yes.
So dance, videoing, and I laugh when I say videoing because I teach them how to make the videos they post on YouTube. And also sport. I want to be an engineer. I've had one come in and say, I want to be a doctor. We can help facilitate them being doctors, and I've found a way to help now facilitate them to do that. And also as well, if necessary, I've found a way now how to remove them out of the environment. I don't need funding for that. Do you know what? The mechanism's already there. We just need access into those mechanisms. And I'm now breaking down those mechanisms. And importantly, it's about just trying to find alternatives at times, in addition to the funding issue as well.
Yeah, so just one statement from you to Ashley. How can they help you do what you do to make it easier?
One word, engage.
Ashley, that's one word for you. Do you have something to add to that, or that will do?
Only to say that we're more than happy to engage with anyone. I mean, me personally, as the Assistant Police and Crime Commissioner, I'm always open to having conversations with anybody.
But just to come to you, Mr. Joe Jackson, you mediate between the authorities and these gang members. And I believe the last fatal event in Wolverhampton, you helped to in this regard. Can you just tell us how is it that you help to work with the police and represent the community? What is it exactly that you do, and how does it help? How has it helped?
I would say it's been a long journey. I mentioned earlier on about me using the football, and the football was literally just to tackle a particular need at that time.
Yeah.
But what very quickly became apparent was every time I would take a young person off the street and develop them, they were replaced by somebody else.
Wow.
Somebody else replaced them. So every time I brought somebody off, somebody else came. And so it almost, the best way for me to almost liken this is, like you might go somewhere and you see water on the floor. You may nearly slip, and so you clean it up.
Yeah.
And then, the next day, you see the same water again and you clean it up. But then there's something away in the back of your mind saying, I cleaned that yesterday. So how did that get there?
Yeah.
Anyway. And you come the following day and you do the same thing again. Now you have to say, hold on a second, something ain't right here.
Yeah.
And what happened is that you kind of look up, don't you? And you look to a higher level and you say, maybe there's a leak. So you climb up and sure enough you find there's a leak and you stop it.
Yes.
So I'm using that as an analogy to say I was using my football to deal with grassroots, but what became apparent was I needed to go higher.
Wow.
I needed to go higher. So the football does what it has to do. That's my engagement. That allows me to connect with the young people and their families.
Yes.
But then we created an organization called Wolverhampton Citizens for Change, and it was literally a case of people delivering on the ground and doing their bits and bobs, but we had to become one entity that we all agreed on. And we basically used that to challenge the authorities in 2005.
Okay.
Challenged it and did it for about 5 years, and we came up with an action plan and basically said to them, we don't believe you have the integrity to deliver on this, but we're going to give you 3 years. And we met with them every quarter for 3 years. Sure enough, they didn't deliver. So we then said, okay, so we now know you have no integrity.
Yes.
So we now are going to deliver our own programs.
And you made them listen to you.
So basically, we just completely cut away from them and delivered. And then eventually, the Safer Wolverhampton Partnership person that was there at the time left, replaced by another person who I had a connection with. And so they created a new model where the community became a voice as part of the Guns and Gang Steering Group, which I know Ashley's guys are part of. And so, like I said, it was a journey, but now we have a situation where we basically, they listen to what we're saying. We're saying we have the information, you need to resource. So we said we wanted a mediation group.
Yeah.
So we trained some mediators, we linked churches into it. And born out of that, we've got we had about 15 people a couple of years ago who got trained. They represented 6 churches, 6 black Pentecostal churches, and they call that group Men for Positive Change. They walk the streets, do pretty similar, they pray, but they mediate between gangs. And it's really we're saying to all facets really, you all have a part to play. Churches, let's be honest, has always been rebuked or rebuked, but has always been said it doesn't do anything other than stay in the four walls. And what we did, we pressed that message until they've come out.
That's an interesting point you've mentioned, because it's been ringing in the back of my head. How engaging are these faith systems or faith organizations such as churches or mosques? You know, Mr. Jadu, do you think the church or the mosque or who, you know, any of these faith organizations are embracing this well enough as they should? And I know Joe just touched on it. Are they coming out more and enough?
That's a twofold answer. With Yes to
Very
Life,
briefly, please.
Yeah. With Yes to Life, we've got, as I've said, we've already got various denominations and faiths involved already. The Black Church has come out now more. One of our rallies we had, and then followed with meetings, we've got about 15 to 20 churches now who are prepared to do things. We do monthly prayer meetings, although that's within the wall. It's to empower people from those churches to actually get involved on the agenda as well. So we are getting there now. Importantly, we've got the ministers on board, and that's what we've got to do first, is get the ministers on board. From we've got the ministers on board, they will get their congregation on board. It's a work in progress, it's still embryonic, but it is ongoing, and we're getting there.
Thank you very much. Errol, just very, very briefly, you held a workshop the other day called Parent Power. What was the message there for parents that would help our young generation in this lifestyle of gang and crime?
Well, so Parent Power is a workshop for parents of teenagers who are looking for strategies and support to get the best out of their students, their young people rather. And so there are 5 things that we focus on with them. The first thing is about them choosing, it's all about them initially. It's about them choosing to be positive in their mindset, their attitude, their outlook, because it's contagious. So if they're positive, if they're a nice person to be around, their kids get that. We talk about them taking responsibility, so for their children, so not 98 or 99, but 100% responsibility for whatever's happening in their home, whatever's happening with their kids, not looking to the school or anyone else externally to be responsible for their kids. We talk about understanding your impact, so understanding that how I speak to you, how I relate to you, how I respond to you, there's a ripple effect for that, and children do what they see, and they live what they're learning from us, and understand your impact. And we talk about setting goals as a family, so having family goals for whether the week or the month or the year, having a code of conduct even for our household. This is our creed for our family, our do's and our don'ts, our standards, and we talked about that. And there's one more thing you caught me off guard with that.
Oh, well,
I think that's
you've said what you've said is profound enough, to be fair, for parents who are here or who get to watch this video to learn from. Do you run this regularly, or was that a one-off?
No, we'll be running regularly, so
Good.
The next one will be happening before the end of the year.
Good, okay. And for people who want to get in touch, how can they? Website address?
They can go to errolLawson.com or go to www.parentpowernow.co.uk.
You've heard it, errolLawson.com or parentpower.co.uk. Moving on very quickly, parentpowernow.co.uk. Thank you. And let's touch briefly on how to exit from this gang life. We're going to take questions in a short while. Errol, you wrote about accepting one's reality being an act of choice and so important for opting out of the gang life. Explain how important this is and how people who are in these shoes can use this to come out.
So I think, and this is a really good question, because I think there's a web almost now around our young people that is strengthened by social media and media generally. And so when I speak to young people who are in gangs today, YouTube in particular has a massive impact on their lives, and so they're seeing these things as a standard for living. Many of them don't necessarily want to be in gangs, but they want the lifestyle. So they're seeing people who are flossing, they're showing these different things.
That's what Romana said earlier, that people just love the lifestyle.
They're seeing that and they're saying, well, if that pathway that you took to get to that, maybe I can get that. So getting them out of it is a challenge. And the first thing we've got to engage them. When we engage and we speak to them, they're very intelligent, they're very articulate. When we speak to them and have a conversation with them, we can give them options. But if we don't have a conversation with them, we can't present them with real options.
No.
So when we talk about, for example, entrepreneurship, we're teaching them what they're not taught in school.
Yes.
And so they see it and go, wow, I can get some products from Alibaba in China for £5. I can sell them on Amazon for £30. No one told me that in school.
Yeah.
But when they've seen these different things, so they need to be engaging them and then give them options. That's the first thing. For some of them, they're going to feel like they're in too deep. And so they need to be relocated, and I think Des has got some ideas around that, and Joe may as well.
Yes.
But they need to, for some it is about relocation,
Yes.
because they are so deeply intertwined in what's happening.
Yes.
But ultimately, so I'll give you my example again, was that I had somebody come into my life who believed in me, so past my behaviour, my attitude, someone like Joe, or someone like Des, who was able to engage with me. Where I had to be there because I was on probation, but they were consistent in their support. Even when I finished my order, they were there for me. And we just need to be that. I think we can all be that for someone, especially as faith communities. We can be more intentional about being that for someone. Somebody's light in their life. There's always hope, and we cannot stop hoping. We cannot lose faith. We cannot
lose faith. There is always hope. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. You know, from where I come from in Africa, we say that it takes a village to raise a child. How much of that are we doing? I remember reading somewhere in your book, you said that what helped you come out or you know, completely transformed you was you read the Bible a lot and bibliographies of great people. Is that a recommendation for anyone who finds themselves in similar shoes?
Absolutely. But you know, if I give you an example, one night before I worked in the prison, Windsor Creek prison for 2 years. Every Friday I go in there and do a Bible study. Now there was a time, maybe a few years before that, where I look at that prison, I can't go to that prison. I'll get eaten alive because, you know, I'm not spiritually strong enough to be able to handle that environment. But as I matured and developed, it became easy for me. And so we've got to know our level. That's what I'm saying. Some of us can go to the front lines and speak to certain people, and because we've matured to a certain level spiritually, we've got to know where we are at. You with me? Our speaking as a Christian, our spiritual strength, the strength of our spirit man, is the most important thing. Is the most important thing if we want to really handle some of these things.
I just want to add to what Errol says very, very quickly, because of time as well.
Yes.
We have to remember James 2 talks about faith without works, right? And remember, our faiths are in different levels. Some people are new in faith, but when we talk about the body of Christ, right? All of us have our function.
Yes.
And that's what one of the things I try to deliver is to recognize where my strengths are and where my weaknesses are. My weaknesses, Errol can pick up on. My weaknesses, Joe can pick up, you ladies, or Ashley can pick up on. Because one of the most important things, the kingdom is about all of us and not about one individual. And sometimes, you know, that's where we get lost. And importantly, remember, we talk about role models with our young people. The fact that they can see me and Ashley disagree, but we shake hands and we all get over here friends, speaks absolute volumes, because you don't take it away. You sort it out, you deal with it, and you leave it there. Sadly, many take it with them and it goes to the next level. And we, as people of faith, have to set that example, because we've got to work hand in hand with one another to ensure that we change what's happening.
Indeed so. Thank you very much. I'd like to take a few questions from the audience, if you have any more.
This is a question for anybody on the panel. I'm here because as a black woman, it breaks my heart to see the youngsters killing each other like flies. Getting emotional here, but not too long ago there was a killing just on the next road from where I live. Now the police had to tape off the road because none of us could get in, no one could come out or go in, right? And I was there from about 5:30 till 8:30. Eventually I found out that a guard being shot in the face in a car, right? My point is that, thank you, my point is, or question is the fact that with the black youth, right, I said black, right? I know there's Asian doing it, it's undercover, but you don't hear it. It's always the black people in the media, always the black people. The police, I thank you Ashley for what you said, it is true. we need to come together. We all need to come together. It's not just the police, it's the community, it's everybody. It may not be your child, but it hurts the next person. Could be someone on your road. You just don't know. Life is so short, right? My point is, right, the police, when they do catch the perpetrator, 9 times out of 10, they say they know which gang they belong to. And that's just what God, then why don't you take them out? Why don't the police take them, take the perpetrator? They know which gangs they belong to, so why don't the police take them out, right? Another thing is, right, I'm sick and tired of hearing money pumped in. If it's not for set up a music session, a dance studio, a thank you reminding your mum for what you're doing, it's a great job. But it's all the same all the time. It's the same all the time. You need to get to the grassroots.
We don't just focus on dance. We do mentoring and actually career projections for all of the youth that are there. So we will do like a week workshop on what are their goals and aspirations, and we won't do like a year plan like I do with my children in the home. I'll do a 3-month plan with them. We will sit down and say, what are your goals, what are you working towards, what is your passion? And that's where we get to listen to them and identify what is it that they want to work towards, and we'll even look at ways in which we can help them achieve these goals. And it doesn't matter how small or how stupid the idea might sound. It could be something like, I want to be a jewellery maker. We will go out of our way to identify, okay, so how can we help you get to that? So it's just about listening to them. So these are the things that we are doing. And just to piggyback on what you said earlier, Desmond, isn't it? What we do is actually funded by ourselves. We've had no funding. We've been up and running for 5 years. We've never had no funding from any government or anything. Everything that we've done is from either our own pocket or just getting the community or getting the kids to actually go out and do things that will fund the actual organisation that we're running.
I think that deserves a round of applause, doesn't it? Wow. Do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, just add, since getting into youth work and coming to events such as this and talking about it, everyone seems to think they have a solution and everyone wants to offer answers, which is great, but I don't see enough groundwork being done by those that offer it. And a lot of my young people are saying to me, mine in school, they're telling us to be this and that, but have they got their own businesses? And everyone's ready to, you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and you know what, you need to turn around and do that, and the police need to do this, and the young leaders need to do that. But if we was to analyse, okay, so what are you guys doing, and are you guys ready to cooperate with us? Let us work together and do it. No one's willing to do that. Even down to churches, I'm going to just be real today.
Yes.
Let's get together and can we have some support? Let's do it. Oh, it's not our denomination, we're not sure we can work with you guys. So now we've seen separation, and the young people are picking up on this, because they'll come to me and be like, well, Mom, you don't see white churches and black churches mixing. Or hold on, New Jerusalem's there and Mount Zion's there, but they don't have young events together.
Yes.
We're not allowed to walk into Mount Zion youth group if we're from New Jerusalem. So they're picking up on these things, they're clued up. And we sit down and talk with them and we're like, okay, this way, but they challenge back with, but if the churches aren't in collaboration with each other, why should us black boys get together and stop our gangs that are separated? So it's good for us to be like, okay, but they're clued up, they've got questions too,
Food for thought. And you can only explain saying so much. Ashley, yes?
So just very, very quickly, and this is slightly off topic, but I think very much related to the points we raised today and your questioning. You started off your questioning by saying you're a black woman. So you couch this in black terms, so I'm going to do the same. As you can all see, I'm a black man. From King's Standing, if I'm a North King's Standing, it's not the wealthiest area in the world, it's one of the most socially deprived areas in the country. And from my perspective, as a young black man coming up in this world, the one key thing, it's touching very much on what Ramona just said, we need to establish a better network system to enable us to do some of the work we're doing. Now, when I was younger, I was always told, okay, you can be what you want to be, you can do what you want to do, but yet those same individuals who said it to me weren't necessarily practicing what they preached. And there are individuals in our community who are politicians, lawyers, doctors, run community centres, etc. But unless you're able to connect the dots and give people that support that will allow them the space to go on and feel they can be what they want to do, we're going to fail. And it's happened time and time again. In other communities, they've done a good job of building that network. So if a child says they want to be a doctor, their aunt says, oh, I know so-and-so from down the road is a doctor, let me connect you with him or her. And as a community, when we look at the infrastructure that we have, the institutions we have, front and centre of one of the institutions that are front and centre of that are our faith organisations.
Yes.
Our churches have been in the black community for centuries. They have a fantastic opportunity and a great role to play in the work we are doing here, and that's why I'm so happy you and your organisation put together this conversation, because I think there is space for the church to do a lot more to work with other organisations to connect those dots. And going through a church door, you have your doctors, you have your lawyers, you have your entrepreneurs, positive role models who aren't just purely sports people, as great role models as they are. We have different people who have different experiences who can provide different avenues for our young people. So yes, this mentoring is important, yes, role models are important, but I think the most important thing is for us to work together to connect the dots, and the church, as being an institution which is at the heart of our community and has been for centuries, has a great opportunity and must do more to connect those dots for us.
Absolutely, thank you.
Just briefly. Errol will know this because he came to our Christmas social. I am chairman of the Ministers' Fraternity. At the moment, we've got about 30 odd ministers on roll from various churches, and we are now sharing facilities and we are sharing the conversation. And what's happening is, if they have a member that has an issue that they can't deal with, they send them to me and vice versa. We're doing a lot of work together now. It's taken a long time, but there are no denominations because we're all a part of the same kingdom.
Yeah, the question is directed at Ashley. You know, it's about these beans, the knife beans. What happens if somebody stops another person, or they stop somebody, and then after stopping somebody, they take the knife and throw it in the bin? And what happens about that? Do you follow that up, or do you try to investigate who stopped you? Who do you normally do that? I just want to know what happens.
Do you understand the question?
Just so I understand the question, so are you saying if a police officer takes the weapon off the young person?
Yes, after, like somebody stops somebody in the street,
yeah,
and then after that, they throw the knife into the bin.
Right, I'm with you. I got the question now. Okay, so first thing to say is essentially there's the police have an understanding that for young people approaching a bin or in the vicinity of a bin, if they have a weapon on them and it's clear they're going to put it in the knife bin, then the police aren't going to apprehend them and arrest them and put them in police cells. That's the first thing. As far as the weapons that are in the bin, of course the police will and other partners as well will have a look at those weapons, and if there's blood on a knife, then of course the police will look at the evidence that has been taken from that knife and utilise the law to hopefully find the perpetrator and tackle that issue. So we're not saying that you can and if you carry out an attack with a weapon, let's say a knife, you can put it in the bin and you're exempt from prosecution. We're not saying that whatsoever. So if there's a weapon that's been found to have been involved in a criminal act, and of course the police will investigate that and hopefully bring the perpetrator to justice. What we are saying is that young people who have weapons, rather than use them against one another, put them in a bin, and not only save somebody else's life, but save your own, because the hurt and the angst and the anguish you can inflict not just on yourself but other people, your families and community, is huge.
So one of the common things that we've heard today is about absent fathers. I kind of struggled with that because I've had a mum and a dad that's still together. I'm 30 this year. So for me, I want to know, like, is there a difference between not having a dad and not having a mum? Is it the same effect? Is there any research? Because there are a lot of single dads out there, but everyone seems to think, oh yeah, because they haven't got a dad, that's the problem. But nobody ever talks about the kids that don't have a mum, or maybe they're an orphan, their parents have passed away. Is it a difference between if your parents have passed away, or they've just left, or you've had a parent from you're born and then you're 10, or you've never had a parent? Is there a difference, or is it just one parent's gone and then you're affected for life?
Thank you very much. Who goes first?
It's actually a really good question, because one of the children that's actually in our dance school, he only lived with his mom, and unfortunately she developed an illness and she passed away quite suddenly. He didn't have a relationship with his father, so he was left literally on his own. He had no family to interject to take on the responsibility of him, and so his dad then had to step back into the father role and take on, the responsibility of him. The sad thing is that we've actually seen a big change in him since losing his mom and now living with his dad. And I know we talked about it earlier on, that absent fathers, listening to a lot of the parents, there's different types of absent fathers, isn't there?
Yes.
There's absent fathers because they purely don't want to be present. There's absent fathers who are possibly on drugs and can't be that parent. There's absent fathers because they purely just, can't look after the child and don't want to have that relationship. And then there's absent fathers because the mother doesn't want them to have any interjection with the child. So there's different levels of absent fathers that's around. Now with this particular young boy, he's struggling now because it's at such a late age in his teenage life. He's struggling now to have the relationship with his father.
Yes.
Some would say it's too late. Some would actually say it's too late. But having spoken to the father, I've realised that because he doesn't listen to the son, because he's not trying to have that relationship to be that supportive role model, it's now starting to have an effect on him at this late stage. So I think in answer to your question, does it make a difference? It certainly does. And I do believe, like we said earlier, that it all depends on how much you play a role with your child as a parent, and getting to know them and have that relationship with them, I suppose.
Yes, thank you very much.
Just very quickly, it depends. You see, when a couple split up, right, mum might be bringing up the child, but mum's bringing the child up, and then you've got something called baggage from the relationship, and that impacts on the relationship. And remember previously I talked about intergenerational disaffection. That is actually a part of it, and one of the biggest problems we have in our community, which we've not mentioned today, but I used to work for Birmingham Housing Department. I used to be a manager there, and I used to have to sign emergency rehousing for gang members when they got shot back in the late 90s. Because this is how long this has really been going on, so it's not today. And when I looked at the ages, they were 12 and 13-year-old mothers. They were going through adolescence when they're giving birth and bringing up children, right? We know that, don't we, Errol? Because that used to happen. And then they got banished, chucked out of the home. They went to church. You're an abomination to God. It happened. I've seen it happen. And then social services, come 16, they get a flat, social services standards, rent guarantor, and before you know it, by the time mum's 20, mum's probably got 4 kids.
Yeah.
Can't cope, kids are being dragged up. It's a very complex area when we talk about absent fathers, because remember, potentially, and we have to face the reality, sometimes you've got a mum with 4 children, 4 different fathers. Who is then there to play the father role in that household, really? And that's a reality that we have to look at and sort out. And that's a stark reality staring us in the face.
Thank you very much for that answer. It is so heartbreaking hearing all of this. Well, because of time, I need to get some final concluding words from each of you. And I'll start with Errol. In your book, you said that Martin Luther King Against all the odds that were stacked against him, he dared to make a stand, to be courageous. He dreamed, he made plans. How can you advise a young one today who's lost all hope, who has no dreams? Because really, some tell you they don't have any hope for the future. We've heard that already come out from this discussion. How can you teach them to dream and have hope? Big question, I know.
In my message, I always say 3 things, So I'll always share my story with them. But there's 3 things I always wanted to focus on. The first is about relationships and choosing the right friends. It's recognizing the impact of that friend that they surround themselves with, and tell them about the 5 friends they spend the most time with, they end up being like. And to ask themselves, do I want to go where my friends appear to be going? The second thing I talk about is taking responsibility. I wanted to understand that if it's meant to be, it's up to me. I can't blame anyone else. I can choose excuses or choose success. That's my choice. I've got to own this is my life. I get one shot at this. I've got to make it happen, take responsibility for it, regardless of my past and my circumstances. Yes. Number 3, I said to be courageous. Because we've all got comfort zones, we've all got something that, a safe, emotionally safe place we'd like to stay in, but actually our goals, our dreams, our potential are all outside of our comfort zone. Yes. It takes courage to get out of that, to choose our future over our friends, to choose to be different, to look different, to do different things. It takes courage. I want to find courage. And then the 4 last thing I say to them is to set goals. I teach them how to set goals, teach them how to think big, to dream big, to see themselves in 5, 10, 15, 20 years time. And if I could underline it with anything else, I'd say read, like you said earlier. Read. Reading is to the mind as exercise is to the body. If you want to be great, if you want to do great things, you have to really exercise that mind and really begin to read books, read biographies, read the Bible, read whatever will inspire you to think differently and be the best version of yourself.
Thank you very much. It is possible. Change is possible. Thank you very much, Errol. Romana, who is your role model?
I have a lot.
Tell us about one and how that has influenced you.
My mom, by far. She's another level. I don't know. Like I haven't seen that demonstration of strength in loving anyone else.
Wow.
And she teaches me this every single day. I mean, juggling, managing 5 dental practices, and then running to the studio after and not complaining. Sometimes I say to her, "You give too much to these dancers. Like you really need to just chill. Stop giving so much." And she doesn't complain when she gives. So I think that's my biggest role model of love. I need to learn how to give like that. Because sometimes as a leader you're like, I'm giving too much, I need to pull back, like they're draining me. But she never complains, she literally just gives and gives, and I'm like, you know what, that's a God-given.
Yes.
That's not a natural giving, that's a God pouring into you kind of.
Yes. Can we put our hands together for Janice? Well done. And Janice, what would be your advice to kids who are trying to remain focused, but they are being pulled from all sides by different things? What will be your advice? How do they remain focused?
Okay, if I can use my daughter's example, because life wasn't always straightforward. Being a single mom, I had to look at different ways in which would help them to focus, both my daughter and my son. And like Errol said, one of the things was I focused on relationships, looked at who their friends were, who they wanted to be surrounded by. One of the second things I'd done was I actually realised that not always me. Sometimes hearing a mother and a father's voice all the time isn't always going to help the child. So what I actually done was infiltrate mentors into my own kids' life. They didn't need it. I felt I could mentor them myself. But I was guided by the Father. There is power in prayer. And, I found that actually, if they have somebody else mentoring them alongside myself, that will be even better. To get them focused. And then one of the third things that I'd done was actually done goal setting in terms of seeking what their passion was. And making them write it down visually. So even with the youth now, when I'm working with them, I'll say, look, don't just say what you want to be. Let's write it down, let's put pen to paper, have it visual, look at it every day, plan the night before, and don't just get up just for the sake of tomorrow.
plan from beforehand. The way that a lot of the youth think today, just to have it in their head is not good enough. They've got to see something visually. The other thing is that I'll allow them to think big. As a culture, we've developed an attitude that I remember I used to say to my granddad, "Oh, I want to be a journalist, I want to be a newsreader," and he'd laugh and say, "Journalist, you idiot." So, you know, that's the way our culture is. We kind of push back and say, well, you can't be a doctor, you can't be a dentist, you know, you can't be this, you can't be that. Why not?
Why not?
There is no difference.
Yeah.
So these are the things that I try to say to them. Yeah, one of the main things mine just reminded me was, I think when she was about 9, I got her a diary, and every single day had something in it. Every single God-given day. Made her busy to a point that she didn't even have to ask me, can I go to town? Her answer was in her diary. Go and reflect on that and tell me if you have the time.
Wow.
Make them busy. As a mother, I remember I used to get really anxious when it came to Fridays, the weekend, because when they've been at school all week, and then as a youth they plan for the weekend. And I thought that's silly, you know, and I tell the parents, plan their weekend before they plan it for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you make the plans and make them really busy so their time is equipped.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Words of wisdom there. Mr. Jadu, very briefly, please. Where is the place of love and forgiveness in all of this?
Place of love and forgiveness is with us. I'm not going to say the church. It's actually with us, because we are the church, and it is with us. And no matter what we're faced with, we must always offer those that love, that humility, that sharing, that caring spirit that God has empowered us, the values that God has given us. It is up to us to share those values. Because importantly, one of the things I do to change the pathway of young people, I mean, we had a barbecue the other day, very quickly, 50 were in the house. They came in, it was either hello Mr. Jadu, hello Reverend Jadu, or hello Desmond. They went in the back garden. I didn't have to say behave yourselves. I didn't have to ask them if they had anything on them. They knew, and when they left, thank you and good night. Now, don't get me wrong, jeans were around the bum. They stunk of weed when they came in, but they knew once you come across my doorstep, you cannot behave in any other way.
Yes.
Because you know why? They know who I am, they know what I represent, and importantly, they look up to me because of what I do and what I represent. And if we all try just to do a little bit of that, it will change things.
It will go a long way indeed. Thank you very much. Joe, what are your final words to anyone living the gang life?
I don't know, I mean, if you say what's the final word for the young person, they're blinded. But I think it's about us. I think, you know, kind of connecting what the guys have been saying here. Every problem is an opportunity for a solution.
Yes.
And what tends to happen, you know, there's a scripture where, you know, Jesus is in the boat and the storm comes, but he said, let us go over the other side. Mm-hmm. But there were some men who was with him, and they became fearful. And Jesus opened up and said, look, how are you so fearful? Why have you not got any faith? And we've got to shift from fear to faith. That's the journey. And sometimes these things come, and because the system wants to put a narrative out there, fear grips us.
Yes.
But when we have to think about this, and I can't go anywhere else other than go from a Bible.
Yes.
We have to be careful what we allow that comes inside of us.
Yes.
Because once we receive it, there's a wrestle, and fear will grip us. We must understand that we have the power to come against anything that comes. And I just truly believe that when the thing comes to you, you just got to come and step up to it, and it's only then you will see the power of God move.
Wow, profound. Thank you very much for that. Brilliant. Ashley, I have 2 questions for you before I call it a day in that regard with the panelists. The first one, what's your message to a parent out there here or in the community, or who gets to watch this video, that is worried about the safety of their children from the police perspective?
Parents need to talk to their children more, and we've heard this said in this panel here, we've heard it said from our audience as well. Parents have to engage more with their children. I understand that, you know, life is hard, life is difficult, you're going to work, you have to pay the bills, put food on the table, but the most important job of a parent, I would argue, is talking and engaging with your child. And I think if parents are able to do that more, more so than they are currently, that will go some way to challenging the issues we have around our young people. Because from my perspective, and talking to friends who have been involved in criminal activity in the past, one thing they keep on saying is they hate the world, but they love their mother. Or they hate the world, but they have time for their father. So utilising that connection to between parent and child is very, very important. So I'd encourage parents to continually talk to young people about not just narcotics and narcotic crime, but all aspects of their lives.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, if anyone present here today or who will watch this video wants to partner with the authorities, how can they do so? Is there provision? Is there funding? How do they get to?
Yep, so I mentioned earlier the Active Citizens Fund, which you can access information on our website. If you just Google West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner, the information will be there. We have the Gangs Violence Commission as well. I mentioned earlier we've put £2 million into that project. A couple of weeks ago we put out a community call out for people who are concerned around some of the issues to engage with us. Just last week we had 8 community members come in for a meeting with us to talk about funding. We'll have another meeting this week to try to talk to more community members around funding. We are hoping to commission a project this summer, and it's now announced in the next few weeks or so, around the work we're doing around the Gangs Violence Commission. And I encourage every organisation, every person who has a bright idea, and more importantly, people who care genuinely about the communities, get in contact with us, and we'll see how we can work together.
Thank you. And that's via your website, I believe. There's information on your website.
Again, if you Google West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner, click on the first link, that'll be our website. Look at the website and you'll see information regarding those funds that I mentioned.
Thank you very much. And that is it. That's all we can talk about today. But like I said at the beginning, I hoped that this session will provide insights to us, that will challenge our thoughts and propel us to do something different, to play that part, that role within the community. And I hope that from all the brilliant discussions, you feel so. But particularly, if there's anyone out there who is thinking of, how can I help? What can I do? You have heard them. You have heard it all. It is just doing your bit, playing your role. On the government website, there is something called, and Ashley might back me up here, Anti-Knife Community Fund. I read just yesterday actually that there is a call to individuals who have a community project idea to put forward a bid to the government. In fact, the deadline is on the 15th of June. So if you are interested, here is an opportunity to do something. Fill the form and see where it goes. If you have such a brilliant idea how to curb this, be it at an early stage or whatever stage of the process. And one more call is, in March there was a petition put out by a pastor in London called Reverend Les Isaac. It was for a review of the effective combating of these crimes. As of when I last checked, there were just over 12,000 signatures. And for it to be held or deliberated upon by the House of Parliament, it requires 100,000. So if you really think that that's a good thing to do, for the government to review this thing and, you know, talk about different ways that we can all come together to help, why don't you pick up your phone and sign this petition? That's all it takes. The deadline is October, not too long to go. Sign the petition. And for members of the community who are worried, who have been affected in one way or the other, I hope this session has given you some hope and assurance of things that are being done and how things can be better done to help to curb this crime epidemic. And to our dear ones out there living the life of gangs, we hope, we really do hope, that through this you will take out something that will help you choose a better way of life, a better alternative to these hateful killings. And that's really it. For those of us who are people of faith, Let's continue to pray for the United Kingdom, I beg your pardon, that there will be peace, there will be love and togetherness, so that we can really be that United Kingdom that the name suggests. Thank you so much, my amazing panelists. Thank you for your time on this Monday afternoon. Thank you for talking out of your heart. Thank you very much. Haven't they been amazing? And we put our hands together for them.